Welcome to the Three Martini Lunch. Grab a stool next to Greg Columbus of Radio America and Jim Garrity of National Review. Three Martinis coming up.
Oh, grab a stool. It's going to be a busy one today. It's impeachment day, don't you know, in Washington, D.C. Jim, there's so much drama in the air because there's one or two members who haven't announced what they're doing. Once all the moderates fell into line, or just about all the moderates fell into line on the Democratic side, a completely foreseeable outcome became pretty much locked in. Well, it's just a matter of seeing what the actual vote totals are, but I'm sure you'll be locked in all day long to the debate, right?
Yes, as the famous Bernie Sanders impersonator Larry David said, curb your enthusiasm, which, as you can guess, in our case, can't get curbed much more. But I guess that's a good segue to our first martini, Greg.
It most certainly is, because the Democrats are finally getting what they wanted, so much so to the point where Nancy Pelosi is actually giving out instructions to Democratic House members today not to gloat. She actually has to do this for some reason. Axios, House Democratic leaders told caucus members not to cheer or applaud when today's impeachment vote totals are announced. One Democratic member from a Trump-won district said the instruction is, quote, don't cheer, keep it solemn, which is what you always have to do, Jim, when you are confident that your caucus is taking a solemn approach to everything. So the Democrats in the House are being kept into line, but we all know, and first of all, Jim, I'm pretty sure that they're going to cheer anyway, but we all know deep down most of them are channeling Rashida Tlaib from the day she was sworn in this year.
And when your son looks at you and says, Mama, look, you won, bullies don't win. And I said, baby, they don't, because we're going to go in there, we're going to impeach the mother.
So, Jim, we all know that's what they're really feeling. I'm not sure why they're hiding it, but I'm sure you'll enjoy the fake solemnity tonight, too.
Well, I was going to say, notice the reaction of that crowd. There was no, Congresswoman-elect Rashida Tlaib, how can you take that tone? Impeachment is very sad. Very, very sad. Look at us. Look at how solemn we are. I understand Pelosi also issued other helpful hints like be sad at funerals, be joyous at weddings and baptisms and such. Look, I don't think – I suppose they should be compared to, turning it into a raucous, rollicking, big celebratory party like, Paul Wellstone's funeral or something like that. Ideally the impeachment of the President of the United States should not be something that anybody responds to with a woohoo or anything like that. This is, but one, we know from the reaction of Rashida Tlaib, like certainly there are some Democrats who are gleeful on the inside, who are thrilled on the inside. And I don't think it really matters how Democrats feel about impeachment. I think what matters is that they're impeaching the president. Votes are binary. As I wrote earlier today in the corner, you either vote to impeach or you don't. I suppose you could vote present if you were, Senator or state legislator Barack Obama. There's no asterisks they put next to it to say that, well, they voted yes, but they hesitated, or they had mixed feelings. They regretted the decision. No, you either is or you don't. And if you feel like it's the right decision, you probably should feel, if not proud, then you should probably feel confident. This was the right decision. This was something we needed to do. Maybe you don't turn it into a party, but I don't think there's any opponent of impeachment who's going to say, well, at least they feel bad about it. And I don't think there's any proponent who'd be like, whoa, they're happy about it? Okay, I don't support it anymore. It adds to the sense that this is all theater. We've been making the comparison to kabuki theater since the beginning. On paper, the optics are better if the Democrats look solemn, but one, I don't have much faith that they're going to do it. And I don't think it makes much difference in the end. They've wanted the country to feel a certain way about this, and I don't know whether you want to attribute it to exhaustion. I don't know whether you want to attribute it to people just getting used to Trump, or whether people genuinely think Trump didn't do anything wrong in this situation. Whatever it is, the messaging has not gone the way the Democrats wanted, and now they're just kind of going through the motions today.
Nancy Pelosi is on the floor as we record this, and she's wearing black as if she is at a funeral, so she's at least following her own memo here. Jim, I have a feeling, I can't prove it. I think Pelosi would have been reluctant to do this, but she might have if the pressure had gotten far enough along. Jerry Nadler wanted to pursue impeachment just based on the fact that Bob Mueller said he couldn't put forth a charge on obstruction of justice because it was determined that sitting president can't be charged. He wanted to do that. There's all the emolument stuff. So even if there hadn't been a Ukraine call, you have to wonder whether we would have gotten here at all.
The entire Morning Jolt is about how this This was a collision course that was destined to happen, and I think you could point out to. I went back and I found this: 83% of Hillary Clinton voters in a public policy polling survey said that Trump should be impeached 3 weeks into his presidency. As soon as there was a Democratic House, this was pretty likely. Clearly, Trump he doesn't see Trump as a co-equal branch of government. I wrote that this morning, and somebody pointed out, Jim, Trump doesn't see anybody as his co-equal in anything, and I think that's probably an accurate assessment. So as soon as you have a Democratic House and a president who feels like he can ignore them, and this was destined to happen, and here we are. I don't think anybody's surprised, and it just feels like something we all just have to get over, get through it today, and then tomorrow we move on to much more important topics, like, is the Star Wars movie any good?
Jim, I don't know if you have this habit. I had it for a while, and I've kind of tapered off now. But the first several years I was in Washington, I collected headlines from papers when there was momentous news happening. Bush v. Gore, Saddam Hussein's killed. I think the last one I picked up was when Obama got elected. But the first one I picked up was Clinton impeached, Washington Post. And there's a great picture of him with his defiant event out there at the White House after the House voted. And Al Gore's there clapping, and he's got this far-off stare of, oh, man, this campaign's going to get a lot more complicated now. But on the sidebar of the Washington Post that day that says, mostly partisan vote shifts drama to Senate. Think we'll get that same subhead tomorrow?
We will see, Greg. I'm not counting on it. We won't, because it won't be a mostly partisan vote. It'll be a pretty much straight-up
partisan vote. Yes, exactly. All right. Well, the holiday season is upon us, and we're going to talk more about impeachment too. But Christmas is now, a week from today. Christmas Day, 1 week away. Wow. And the New Year's Day is just 2 weeks away. We're almost done with 2019. Time of the year where we get together with family and friends, and we like to take a lot of pictures. Hey, haven't seen you in a long time. You want to look good. But when you've got wrinkles and crow's feet and under eye bags, you figure, well, I wish I could look a little bit better, but I'm just getting older. Can I do anything about that? Nobody wants to have that happen, but now you can imagine they're gone, and you can take steps to make sure they are gone. And we're not talking about risky, expensive surgery. We're talking about getting rid of these things in just minutes with Plexiderm, a clinically studied serum that visibly eliminates your wrinkles, crow's feet, and those under eye bags in just minutes. It's exactly what you need to get through this holiday season and way beyond.
Now you won't have to imagine how you would look anymore. You will look like yourself, just 10 years younger. Plexiderm can give you the confidence you need to face that judgmental family member. We all have one. And the best part is Plexiderm goes on clear, so no one will know that you're using it, unless you tell them.
Get Plexiderm's holiday promotion. Go to tryplexiderm.com and use our code Martini for 50% off, plus an additional $10 off. That's right, 50% off, plus an extra $10 off. The offer is also available by calling 1-800-685-1292 and mentioning the code Martini. Plexiderm is backed by a 30-day money-back guarantee, so visit tryplexiderm.com today and use the code Martini at checkout. That's tryplexiderm.com. Jim, I'm watching the Republicans now, and they all have diagonal striped ties. So I don't know if there's just coordinated wardrobes going on all over the place today. But
you know what it's saying, Greg? It says this whole investigation of the president has been slanted from the beginning. The country's going downhill because of it.
Oh, amazing. All right. Well, so the House is going to impeach today. We know that's going to happen. Both articles, despite the fact there's that one guy from Maine, I think it is, that's going to vote for one and not vote for the other. Either way, it's supposed to head to the Senate after that, and we still assume that it will. But because Mitch McConnell is openly talking about coordinating with the White House and the fact that he's pretty much stiff-arming Chuck Schumer's demand for witnesses like John Bolton and Mick Mulvaney and some other folks, there's now a growing effort on the part of some to maybe not send the articles of impeachment to the Senate right away. One of those people who is in favor of this idea is Maryland Democratic Senator Chris Van Hollen, who's a former member of the House. And he told MSNBC, quote, I think the reason Republicans are so determined not to have these witnesses that come forward is that they could say something even more incriminating than the evidence that we've already got. The only reason for them to hide it is there's more incriminating evidence. If you're going to have something, you're going to call a trial, then it has to be open and fair. And so what are you going to do if they don't, Senator Van Hollen? One is that we get enough Republican senators who recognize that without the ability to call real fact witnesses, the so-called trial in the Senate looks like a sham, and so they vote with us, he said. Another alternative, which I think should be considered, is Speaker Pelosi could hold the articles of impeachment after they've been voted in the House and say to Mitch McConnell, look, we want to make sure there's a fair trial in the United States Senate. So basically he's saying that unless the Republicans, in the majority, mind you, agree to what the Democrats want to be the process for a Senate impeachment trial, then the House is just going to hang on to those articles of impeachment and there just won't be a trial. Jim, I'm sure Republicans are just, please don't throw me into that briar patch.
Just about to say, I can almost hear all the Republican senators saying, oh, no, they might not send over the articles of impeachment and we wouldn't get a chance to vote on it. We wouldn't irk a whole bunch of people in our primary or in the general election. We'd avoid this deeply controversial topic that angers a big chunk of voters on either side, no matter what we do. We would just avoid all that. We just have to sit here and vote for judges for the rest of the year. Oh, no. It reminded me of Blazing Saddles when the sheriff takes himself hostage. Nobody in the Republicans are really itching to vote on. I mean, is it conceivable that 4 Republican senators would say, well, clearly we have to have a fair trial. Clearly Nancy Pelosi and the Democrats have a really good point here. We're going to vote with the other 47 Democrats to change. I suppose they could. But look, Greg, I assume you've noticed that impeachment goes from a legal process to a political process and back, depending on what anybody needs at any given moment, right?
Yes.
Because, whenever the Republicans are like, well, we got to call in, and the House Republicans wanted to call in Hunter Biden, they wanted to call in Joe Biden, they wanted to bring in all these other witnesses, and the argument was no. They wasn't sure they're going to allow the Trump lawyers or White House lawyers to cross-examine witnesses. It's like, wait a minute, this is not a trial. There is no right to confront your accuser in impeachment. Impeachment is a political process. So you move to the Senate. And I know it's going to shock people, but it turns out a bunch of people in the president's party don't want to see him impeached. None of this happened in 1998. If we all remember, back then, every Senate Democrat was like, look, I am completely open-minded to the possibility of impeaching the president of the United States. It's quite possible Bill Clinton has this coming, and the best thing to do – no. So, the old thing about, Trump's joke about shooting people on 6th Avenue, it would probably have to require something like that to get Republican senators to say, okay, we support impeachment. And even then, there'd probably a couple would be saying, okay, but who did he shoot? And where did he hit him? Of course McConnell's going to be looking, working closely with the White House on this. When you impeach a president whose party has the majority in the Senate, you're going to get stuff like this, right? Kamala Harris, by the way, said if she was elected president, the Department of Justice would indict Trump. Never mind what the evidence finds. She's already decided. It doesn't matter who she appoints as Attorney General. Do you think Kamala Harris is going into this as an impartial juror? No. Nobody's going into this as an impartial juror. Welcome to impeachment. It's not a legal process. It is indeed a political process. Them's the rules, folks. That's the way it's going to be handled. So, I guess they could do this. I don't think you'd suddenly have Mitch McConnell quaking in his boots, and I think they'd be really struggling to find 4 Senate Republicans who wanted to say, yes, we will stand with the House Democrats against our own majority leader because, you don't cross Cocaine Mitch too many times and live to tell the tale. Right? You could do that, but, McConnell could say, all right, fine, but, I'm going to remember this. And also, do you think that there's a certain type of rules for the House that would actually change the outcome of the rules for the Senate trial that would change the outcome?
No,
my guess is no. I'm very skeptical that there's, you could have a bazillion and one witnesses. You could have 0 witnesses. I think the vote's going to be about the same. Now, the interesting thing is, Greg, let's say that they say, wait a minute, a 2-week trial? Are you kidding me? We need to have a full hearing on this. We need to have all these witnesses in here. I don't know. How do you think Bernie Sanders votes?
Probably not.
Elizabeth Warren, Michael Bennet, who's still running, even though everybody's forgotten about him, Cory Booker, Amy Klobuchar. You think all of them are like, no, let's take as much time as we need on this Senate trial, this process where we have to sit and watch all day and listen, and we're not allowed to say anything. We can't run to Iowa, New Hampshire, and South Carolina, and Nevada, and all these other places we want to be because we're running for president. Could be really interesting if push really came to shove on that. My guess is that the House will send over the articles of impeachment. Look, the House didn't spend oodles and oodles of time on this. I think everybody feels like the facts are pretty clear on this. The big question is, do you believe this warrants removing the president from office? And, almost every Republican says no, and almost every Democrat says yes. So why we need to drag this out does not seem clear.
Yeah, and the short memories here, and it really goes both ways when you look back to 1998, 1999, and it's a generation ago. It looks even older than that because it's all in standard def when you go back and watch everything, like Henry Hyde's.
Nadler has lost like 100 pounds since then.
Yeah, he has. Yeah,
right? I mean, like, he's still heavy set, but I mean, this, he's like half the man he used to be.
Literally, yeah, absolutely right. And but I remember Larry King Live because he had a show back then, CNN, pretty popular show at the time, and he had Democratic
Peoria, you're on the air.
Democratic senator after Democratic senator coming on and going, even before the trial started, going, yeah, I don't see this. I'm not going to vote to convict. And nobody said a word because it's a political exercise. But now when it's a Republican president, I can't believe there's not juror impartiality here. This is incredibly unprofessional. It's a crime against the judicial system. You even had Chuck Schumer back then, who was in the House for the impeachment vote, but had won the Senate seat. And so he was a juror in the Senate, too. And he obviously came in having his mind already made up. So the idea that this is somehow different in terms of having your mind made up before you went in is nothing new. It's just a different set of circumstances. That's all.
The only thing I disagree with you there, Greg, is so you're telling me it's a generation since 1998?
Well, that's what they used to say. I know people are getting
married
later now.
So you and I were young men then. You and I were young men then.
Yes, we were.
We're not a whole generation away from being young men, Greg. It was only 2 years.
21.
It was only 22 years ago.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So less than a generation.
The 20-year generation thing was kind of when people got married shortly out of high school and so forth. But more recent generations have kind of spread that out a little bit. On to our final martini now. These are all crazy, by the way. Barack Obama has not said a whole lot in public, but he said some things in public recently over in Singapore at an Obama Leaders Summit. As Hot Air puts it, he spent a lot of time patting himself on the back for changing the world. But here's what he said that makes you scratch your head a little bit more about where he stands in this 2020 Democratic primary. He's obviously stayed out of it. Biden claims that Obama wanted to endorse him, but Biden said, no, I need to do this on my own. I think as time goes on, we're buying that less and less. But here's what Obama said. Women, I just want you to know that you're not perfect, but what I can say pretty indisputably is that you're better than us, meaning the men. I'm absolutely confident that for 2 years, if every nation on earth was run by women, you would see a significant improvement across the board on just about everything, living standards and outcomes. If you look at the world and look at the problems, it's usually old people, usually old men, not getting out of the way. It's important for political leaders to try and remind themselves that you are there to do a job, but you are not there for life. You are not there in order to prop up your own sense of self-importance or your own power. Now, Jim, few people would know as much about self-importance as him, but this is obviously not exactly a guy who's making statements like that and then turning around and wanting a guy pushing 80 years old who's been in government forever to be the next president.
I was about to say, where was this attitude in spring of 2008? Hillary Clinton is just yelling at her television screen, oh, you didn't want women in power then. Only now has he suddenly realized, and look, the idea of these narcissistic people being in power, right? These men in power who constantly talk about how great they are. We all remember the number of times Obama during his speech would talk about his own profound humility. He doesn't have regular humility like the rest of us. He doesn't have mundane humility. No. He has profound humility. His humility is so much better than the rest of ours. Us little peons. Now, here's the thing. If you said to, conservatives hate women, well, we all like Margaret Thatcher a lot.
Yes.
If you wanted to say, would you rather have Joe Biden or Carly Fiorina be president? I know how a lot of conservatives would vote. Go down the list. There are, who's the rising star in Republican circles at the moment? Elise Stefanik. And the Democrats up there keep calling her little girl. Which party is more respectful of women? If you ask, are women better leaders? Well, it all depends on the woman. It all depends on the man. Which ones do you want to compare there? If somebody said, would the world appreciate a Mrs. Columbus, Mrs. Garrity ticket? I think you and I would be like, yes, the world would be in a much better place. There'd be a lot of issues about whether you can drink stuff on the couch, various other issues. Like the country, there would be occasional tense disputes with either of these people in charge. But, so it's so, and I'm sure the entire, crowd there loved it when Obama said it. It was kind of like when, every time Eric Swalwell said, we needed to have more women in government, thus people should elect him. should we elect you so you can appoint more women, Eric, or should we just actually elect a woman instead? But that's where we are. I guess all you have to do is make this kind of, gesture or rhetoric, and all of a sudden you're a friend to women and you're an ally and la-di-da and all that stuff. Yeah. So this was the Obama leaders overseas, huh, Greg?
Yes.
If there's anything we've learned from the Clinton Foundation, it's that there's nothing bad that can be going on with a president having a giant nonprofit operating overseas and involved in foreign territories for years. As far as we know, Michelle Obama's not running for president, and the Obamas may be done in a political life. So if that's the case, fine. Go raise money from whoever you want. Speak to whatever groups you want. But yeah, I don't know. I remember when presidential libraries were just these obscure things, and they had talking head conferences and stuff like that. Those were the good old days, Greg.
Yeah. Set up your library, sit on a couple of boards, write an op-ed once in a while. It's pretty much a gig. Be there at the library openings of other former presidents. Fascinating stuff. I think of, obviously, there have been some very good female leaders. Margaret Thatcher, of course, is the first one to come to mind. Hillary Clinton, not so good. Never made it to president, of course, in case she forgot. Theresa May, not that fantastic, but others have been around the world. And so it's one of these identity issues, again, where Democrats just want to say, ooh, this demographic would be great, instead of actually looking at the individual. That's one of the big differences between left and right. And Jim, a lot of people are thinking, obviously this has been a politically exhausting stretch here for the last few years. But at any point since he left office, have you missed Barack Obama, or how he is profoundly disappointed with us from time to time?
I will observe. I feel like there's been a familiar trait carried over from the Obama years to the Trump years. It's when the president, when something terrible happens in the federal government, the president's like, I had no idea. This is the first time hearing of it. Oh, I'm as shocked and appalled as somebody ought to do something about that. As we used to get from Obama about the IRS and the Department of Veterans Affairs and HHS and healthcare.gov. Obama was always as upset as any of us, and somebody really should look into this. Well, Mr. President, you're the president. You can do this. But, yeah. Greg, somehow I've turned into this whole process of impeachment and everything has turned me into Bella Caroli. You can do it. You can do it, Mr. President. I cannot do it, but you can do it.
I also love your reference to Eric Swalwell. Beto was kind of the same way. It's like, I'm going to pander as much as I need to here, but not to the point of compromising my own selfish political ambitions. Those are good moments.
Yeah, I mean, I am the white male who can empower women. Okay.
Jim, happy impeachment day. Tomorrow we'll be on to something else probably. See you then.
See you tomorrow, Greg.
Jim Garrity, National Review. I'm Greg Corombos of Radio America. Thank you so much for being with us today. And don't forget about our friends over at Plexiderm. Try Plexiderm.com. Promo code Martini at checkout. Please subscribe to the podcast, leave us a nice review, and join us on Thursday for the next 3 Martini Lunch.